I call them weeds when it comes to relationship conflict. Much like a garden, if you've got a beautiful garden, let's say in this case your relationship is the garden, you've got beautiful colors and flowers and different types of plants, and you nurture that garden, right? And every once in a while in a relationship, a conflict will come up, like this morning, and what that represents in the garden is a weed. And what happens when the weed gets left unattended in time, it starts to take over the garden and ruins your beautiful garden. And the metaphor kind of captures the relationship and the process of the relationship, and how often we, like you mentioned, let our egos kind of get in the way, and we have conflicts, and one person is coming from one angle and another is coming from another angle, and we feel like it's our duty to kind of wrestle and come out on top. Our kind of protective instincts, I guess our defense mechanisms kind of come up, and that leaves a weed. Welcome to What No One Told Us. This is a conversation between two men in the middle of life. We don't come with answers or a plan to get anywhere. We come as we are, with what's alive, what's unclear, and what's honest.
Sometimes we speak from certainty, sometimes from doubt, and sometimes we're just trying to understand what we are feeling in real time. If you're listening while navigating your own questions, you are very welcome here.
Yeah, no, the calm guy is not feeling very calm. But
hey, what's happening?
I'm only human. Just relationship stuff, difficult relationship stuff. You go through conflict, and I had a bit of a conflict this morning actually, and it's left me feeling a bit frustrated, a bit angry, a bit rattled. And it's funny because before I knew I was coming to have a recording with you today, and I had a thing with my wife this morning, and she did mention to me before I went into the session, she said, "Are you going to do your podcast now?" And I said, "Yes." And she said, "Oh, what's the topic today?" Annoying wives. And I had to laugh because I thought, well, actually, maybe we do end up talking about annoying wives. Who hasn't got an annoying wife out there? Or an annoying girlfriend?
Yeah, poor us, eh?
Or us. I mean, maybe they start making a podcast about annoying husbands that do all sorts of annoying things, like leaving toilet seats up, or not taking the empty milk container out of the fridge, or what other annoying things do husbands and boyfriends do you think?
Taking the whole space in the bed.
Snoring. I often get accused of snoring. That's another one. Yeah. Oh, a new one actually that she's just started to talk to me about, but point out to me that I leave the old coffee in the coffee machine. So I should be cleaning out the coffee machine and leaving it ready without any of the old coffee in there for her. So that's a new one that I've been told I need to work on.
Mm-hmm. Most of those situations that we have with wife partners or whoever we chose to live with are coming from a reactive way of being, coming from ego situations where we are actually not seeing that we are actually dealing with the person that we have chosen to love, to hug, to create a life with, and suddenly it becomes like a threat or a big thing that we're dealing with, and it comes both ways. It's not only the wife or to the husband, and it's also the husband to the wife, and both. The interaction that creates all these conflicts, which we have it in a daily basis sometimes or very often, and we don't know what to do with that when we are in that little cloud. And but I just wonder, how did you deal with it this morning, Lloyd? Did you do anything in particular, or are you still holding?
Oh, I think I'm still holding, and it was, yeah, it was. It, it sort of partly got dealt with. It will definitely need to be addressed later, I think, and that's probably a really useful uh, approach. I call them weeds when it comes to relationship conflict. Much like a garden, if you've got a beautiful garden, let's say in this case your relationship is the garden, you've got beautiful colors and flowers and different types of plants, and you nurture that garden, right? And every once in a while in a relationship, a conflict will come up, like this morning, and what that represents in the garden is a weed. And what happens when the weed gets left unattended in time, it starts to take over the garden and ruins your beautiful garden. And the metaphor kind of captures the relationship and the process of the relationship, and how often we, like you mentioned, let our egos kind of get in the way, and we have conflicts, and one person is coming from one angle and another is coming from another angle, and we feel like it's our duty to kind of wrestle and come out on top, our kind of protective instincts, I guess our defense mechanisms kind of come up. And that leaves a weed. This morning, it's early morning, so it's a school day. It's getting kids off to school. It's getting ourselves off to do our things for the day. So it's not always best place to sit down and address these weeds. So I think for me, I will need to address it at some stage, either today or tomorrow. I ideally wouldn't want to leave it any longer than a day or two. Uh, my experience, what often happens with conflict, in this case, weeds in the garden, is they can kind of grow momentum. And as sure as Christmas and taxes, relationships are full of conflict. So you're going to have another conflict at some stage. So if I don't address this particular conflict, or this disagreement, or maybe even it's just a misunderstanding. In this case, it was probably more of a misunderstanding, which led to frustration on my behalf, frustration not fully expressed, and that becomes a weed that can gather force and gather momentum, start to infiltrate other areas of the garden, and I will arrive to the next conflict or next disagreement with the energy from that previous conflict. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, and
And if
wow.
not kind of not dealt with, then I think that then kind of snowballs, if that makes sense. My
Hmm.
experience with my relationship, tending to the weeds on a regular basis, much in the way you would with your own garden,
Yeah.
um, is a healthy way to maintain a reasonable state of equilibrium. So let's just say, for theory's sake, that you have an argument with your missus, and you leave it unattended. It's more, how often do you notice that when you go into the next argument, that unresolved issue is sort of hanging there in the background, and it almost kind of has further reinforcement? I know that whatever was going on for me this morning is going to probably manifest over the day. I'm sure there's going to be things that are going to come up for me. My mind's going to start to chatter. The ego is going to have a bit of a story to layer on top of that, and it's probably going to grow in strength. Have you ever
Mhm.
experienced that in a relationship where you feel like something has happened, it hasn't been resolved, and it's come up later?
Yeah, definitely, and it's a very dangerous situation in a way because in and what I when you become that problem, right? That day your life becomes that problem, right? So you are in your head, and then your interactions are going through that filter of that frustration. So your day is actually tinted on that. And I believe that if you don't have a space of a pause to take some breathing and take some distance from what happens, you're still living in your little life, into your little situation. This morning I have a little moment where I felt like a comment from my partner Donna, and I felt threatened, and I felt like I needed to react, and I need to, and suddenly I was trying to explain something, and then it was more confusing, and then I said, what am I trying to defend here? Why am I? And then, well, I used one at some point. We stopped dealing with that because it was going nowhere, and I used one of the tools that I you mentioned in a couple of episodes. I don't know if a few episodes ago, when you said, "Oh well, this is the time to say I love you," and give her a hug, and that transformed her into a smile, and then we could take perspective of what the dialogue was about, and suddenly we laugh about it. That was a soft interaction, but sometimes it can get heated because there's something very, very important happening.
Mm.
You've been triggered very badly, and suddenly you need to protect yourself. Yes, a lion about to eat you, and you need to fight it, and suddenly you are in this under this like very dark cloud, and if you are not very aware, or that could lead to, if, depending on your personality or your stories, it could lead to any type of reaction, even violence, or so those situations where the ego gets compromised are very dangerous in a way that if you are not aware of those moments. So there is a so for me it is important to find a way that you can actually stop, or de-escalate, or take your time, or diffuse this until you can get some perspective of what's happening. And one of the things that I'm trying to use now, and I know that in any conflict there is a big percentage of myself from that.
Mm.
So apologizing automatically is actually a good thing. You never regret that you need to apologize, because there is no way that you have nothing to do with what's happening. So so that softening on that, even when the storm is still there, it's a good thing. Or walking away. I mean, in a friendly way, or in a very sort of approachable way, not like throwing things and walk away. But it's another good tool. I don't know. Have you got any other idea of how to take distance from when we are in it?
Mm. Oh, look, I think we are still learning, isn't it, about relationships, and I think the key thing that you mentioned there was the self-awareness. So, the first question is for me is how did you get to learn that you were bringing a story to the conflict? Because that's half the battle, isn't it? If we don't have that awareness, then we can potentially get caught up in the conflict, and the conflict will get worse because we cannot see almost outside like what's happening here for me. I'm bringing a large proportion of my own uh, you know, inner ideas or inner beliefs about certain situations, or I'm having these thoughts and I'm having these feelings or emotions about this event. So
Mm-hmm.
pausing is an incredibly helpful tool. One thing for me, and I always encourage in my relationship with my wife, is it's okay to take a time out in those moments and revisit them. Um, Particularly if the conflict is starting to get a bit heated. And in my case this morning, it wasn't a heated conflict. It was probably more of a misunderstanding, and it left me feeling angry and frustrated, and uh, not actually feeling like uh, I could help her in this particular situation. Now, like I said, it was early morning, so getting the kids off to school, getting ready for the day, the cortisol's flowing in the body as we're, gearing up, and I recognized in that moment that it didn't need to be fully resolved then.
Mm-hmm.
And there was nothing in this situation to apologize for, but that's an interesting thing, because is there an option to actually validate the experience as well? If you're apologizing, are you apologizing for for doing something wrong, or what are you apologizing for? Because in that moment, is there a is there an option to go, I'm actually feeling this way and that's okay? So you're
Mm-hmm.
almost validating the experience. And does the apology kind of invalidate the experience a little bit as well? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, when I say that, I just wonder how many times we often say to our wives, I'm sorry, you're right, honey. When really, do we really mean that?
Yeah, but one of the things for me is I apologize for not whatever the content of what she's saying, and if it involves you, you get triggered
Mm,
by something that is being said.
mm,
What is being said is not the truth; it's what's been said. All right.
mm,
So the thing about every time we react is because we got triggered by something. So
mm,
it is mandatory that when we react on something, that we look at what actually triggered there.
mm,
I mean, um, sometimes there's a lot of things getting said about ourselves, and we don't get triggered, but there is something that normally triggered us. So, in that sense, I'm saying, well, there is something that we need to look at. What? Because otherwise, nothing should trigger us because it's somebody else is talking about their own experience. Okay, but
mm,
when we're triggered, is because we feel certain, we feel insecure, we feel frustrated, whatever we feel. So,
mm,
however we react, is we reacted from that trigger. So in that sense, it's like, I'm sorry, I'm reacting from my trigger. I will look at my trigger. So in
mm,
that sense, I'm saying, I'm sorry, I'm reacting from my trigger. It's not, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? It's just
mm,
like there's a need for me to address my trigger. Also, I'm not saying it and I won't, but also there's a need of the other person to address their own trigger, all right?
mm, mm,
But the only thing that you can do is to look at your trigger.
mm,
And if the other person doesn't look at the trigger that comes that, well, that's the other person's responsibility. And at some point, with the space and when we get out of the cloud, we can actually talk. All right, can we actually look at our both triggers and then see what happens? And is there anything we need to be aware or we can do differently to, first of all, to look after the triggers and also to live with them if they are very sensitive topics, all right?
mm,
And actually don't go straight there just to hurt the other person because
mm,
you know there is a trigger there.
mm,
And then the responsibility of their own person to look after those triggers and see what happens. Where are they originated, and with that grow.
Yeah, I like that. It sounds, like taking ownership, independently taking ownership for your own feelings, thoughts, and actions around conflict. I think it's a really good way to resolve conflict.
I mean, it's all theory, all right. What we talk about is that once you are in it, once you are in the ego and your body trying to protect you because there's so much um, um, so much danger around you, and it's very hard to go there. But if the more we are aware of that, the easier it will be also to get out of that moment or actually soften a bit.
Hmm.
So it's probably good to have one or two places that we can go when we feel angry and practice, all right, just to get
Hmm.
out of that.
Mm.
Yeah, all right. Where is the where is the tiger? Where's the tiger? Who's gonna? What's the danger here? All right.
Yeah, and this conversation can be applied to anything in life, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Because we have conflict with others. We have inner conflict. Situations give us, um, y- challenge, and what we learn here in managing our relationships is really about managing ourselves as well. So taking a pause and asking for a timeout on a particular conflict is a helpful strategy for me in my relationship, and it's a shared understanding between the both of us. So it may not always work for everybody. So the first thing I would say is make sure that you're both in agreement that if you are having a conflict and it's not going anywhere, and maybe it's not the right time because you've got kids in the house or whatever, and you could need to get ready for the day, then in this instance, it's taking a time out and both agreeing that you'll come back to it later.
Mm.
And what I'll add on that, and again, something my wife and I have agreed on, is that weeds should be addressed no more than 24 hours after they have taken root. So this morning would be a good example of that. And just to continue on with the garden metaphor, because I quite like that. I think most people can relate to gardening. Um, what happens, with that weed if it's left unattended as it grows, and it will take over this beautiful garden that you've cultivated with this woman or this man that you love and that you have a history with, and maybe you have kids with, and you have a story. And it's a shame to let these weeds take hold, but they do, and they often don't get resolved, and they can potentially, taint or poison your garden in the long term. So regular maintenance, whether that's done, weekly or monthly or whatever. And in our case, we're not that structured. But we probably will have a conversation tonight, and then we'll definitely have a conversation tonight where I'll uh, come back to another tool or skill that I use called I learned called the Seafield need
Okay.
model that helps me to address these weeds without the conflict then becoming another conflict, which often happens when we sit down and we go, look, I really want to nut out what happened this morning, and you need to know this. And the ego is still pretty active, right? The ego is going to come and have another go to assert dominance and to prove that we're right. That's not the case in this model. So Seafield need, just very simply, is you're seeing the situation through your partner's eyes. So when you say I see you, basically what you're doing is you're validating their experience. And in this case, I see that you were angry, frustrated by XYZ situation. Uh, and that is a very good way to start a conversation by validating the other person's experience and making sure that they feel that they've been understood, that they have been heard.
Mm-hmm.
The second part of it is feel, which is explaining how what you've seen or the situation has affected you emotionally, cognitively with thoughts. So I felt angry and frustrated this morning in this particular instance. I felt like I was wanting to find a solution for my wife, jumping to solutionizing. And I felt frustrated and like a failure that I couldn't help her in that moment with this particular issue that she was having. I felt frustrated because it's a similar pattern. It's something that we've been through before. And uh, I also felt confused about what it is that she needed from me in that moment. So I was expressing all that through describing my feelings in a way that wasn't connected to her. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that's an important distinction, I think, to make is that we're not saying, I felt angry because you did this.
Mm-hmm.
So there's not an accusation. It's really a observation of what was happening for you so that you're identifying or almost kind of in a way calling out what happened with your ego, telling
Yeah,
a story. My ego did this and my ego did that, but you're describing it from a feelings perspective. I
yeah,
saw you were angry and frustrated. That made me feel like I was not able to support you in that moment, which made me feel not enough, also frustrated, confused, etc., etc. The list can go on. So in that way, then you're also validating your experience as being just an experience that human beings would naturally have in that moment. So
yeah,
again, it's not adding more judgment and weight into the situation. It's just kind of expressing yourself. And the final part is need, which I think is also really important. And it's not what you need from the other person, it's what you need for yourself in that moment. And in this case, this morning, what I needed was to express myself and also to establish some boundaries or some uh, reorientation to what it is that she needs. Really interesting what you said before that you had picked up a tip from me in the past in terms of, uh, you know, supporting our wives or our partners by saying, I love you and giving them a hug and making them feel supported in that way. Totally missed the boat on that this morning. Guilty as charged. My own advice failed me. But again, hey, I'm human. In that moment, I felt frustrated. Like I didn't want to do that. I kind of wanted to fix the problem for her, and I slipped into that old habit. And what I what I needed in that moment was to reorientate to that again, to reaffirm, recommit. Is that still what you need from me, so that I can make sure that I'm secure in myself in terms of delivering that for you. And that's it, basically. The see, feel, need model. I don't know if I did a very good job of explaining it, but
uh,
I'd be happy to share link in the notes to more information about that for anyone that is interested in applying some of that to their own relationship conflict. Is that something that resonated with you at all?
yeah. That was beautiful. I really liked it. I really liked it because it's all we need while we are in our fight or flight or whatever situation we are on, protecting ourselves because there's a lot of danger around. Is actually have a method for de-escalate what's happening on our emotion, all right? Because,
Mm.
as I said before, it could get to our reactions and our way of protecting ourselves, it could get to very horrible situations. We can create more and more damage, and we can actually, in in that quest to protect ourselves and to be right, sometimes we are relentless, all right, and that can create a lot of damage and a lot of hurt. And some of them, for some people, there's no way back from those, all right. So it's very, very important to have a mechanism where we can, as soon as possible, as soon as you identify that you are not on, there's no danger, nothing's going to happen. It's just a person that you have chosen to live your life with, the person you love, the person that you hugged last night, the person that you said I love you. It's not doing anything malicious. It's just having something happening to her or to
Mm.
him. So so that what you just explained is one of the tools that could be very, very useful to, at that moment, de-escalate and then take the time to process what really, really happened. What was such an important thing that we needed to protect, all right? And then yes, and then address those weeds, and the thing about those weeds that we address, they are very important to be addressed, and maybe put some action after that. Well, because we don't want to be dealing with those weeds again all the time. All right, those weeds, what we learn from our weeds, we probably don't want to have the same weeds again all the time. So how do we do that? We need to get rid of them, or I don't know. I think that, yeah, it's a very, very good analogy. But the thing about those weeds is that we need to learn from them. All right,
Mm.
and and it's important to have that moment with in the conversation. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. Look, I think relationships, healthy relationships should have conflict. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's how we learn, and that's how we get stronger, I guess.
Yeah. We don't need to uh, do away with the weeds entirely because there's value there. Like you said, there's learnings in every conflict that we have. As an opportunity for growth within the relationship. So we may be inclined to want to pull out the weeds and throw them over the fence and never see them again. But I'm not sure it works like that. In fact, I have another idea which I'll throw out to you, and that involves what we do with the weeds is, we address them, like I mentioned, timely so that they don't take over the garden. They don't create resentment in the relationship. They don't harbor ill will, only to armor you in the next conflict with further ammunition to throw at the other person. It's not what we want to do. A healthy relationship will have conflict. It's what we do with the conflict. And I'd like to imagine that the weeds get pulled out, but they get added to the compost bin.
Mm.
And the compost then becomes something that recycles back into the garden in a sort of an evergreen process. That there's learnings, like you said, and that the compost could be the metaphor for those learnings. We're not doing away with the weeds. We're actually sitting down in this loving relationship that we have, this very human relationship of two egos trying to accommodate each other in a very complicated world. It's getting more and more complicated, we can also add. So hey, let's cut ourselves some slack here
Yeah.
and realize that we're doing the best that we can. The fundamental element is we love each other, and the weed that we've created here, we've birthed together. So let's take it out, let's address it, let's express it, let it see the light, and let's pop it back into the compost, because we're going to take some learnings here and move forward so that the next time conflict comes up, we might be a little bit wiser, a little bit quicker to pause. We might learn a little something about ourselves in the process, deepen our understanding, deepen our relationship. And this is a really important point. I've noticed that often when constructive weed pulling sessions happen between me and my wife, I often feel more connected to her.
Nice. Yeah.
And who doesn't want that? So it doesn't have to be some sort of a chore. Like, sure, no one likes weed in the garden, right? But if you care and you tend for the garden as a whole and what you've created, then isn't it worthwhile taking the weeds out, chucking them in the compost bin, and seeing them further reinforce and support this growing, nurturing environment that you've created, which is the garden of your love.
Yeah. Yeah.
Amen,
Yeah.
sister.
No, that's beautiful. Yeah, and that's beautiful. I will add something else. The in the personal experience
God,
one.
that sounded incredibly cheesy.
No, no, that's amazing. And I was about to finish the podcast right now. That would have been a great end. I will add something else. So
Yeah.
and I ruined the end of the podcast with this. But no, but what in a personal in my personal situations right now, one of the things that we added to that is I'm my partner Donna is also, she's a meditator as well. So every now and then when we feel that we are very overloaded by things, and we have dealt with weeds or something, we propose like to meditate together, and we do it quite often. Meditation together is a very very beautiful moment where it's time to align our breathing, and it's time also to take perspective of everything. And so you go a little bit to the whole universe, and you can see your garden and your weeds and everything from the universe point of view, which makes everything extremely beautiful, but also insignificant in a way. And it is insignificant and significant at the same time. So, and it gives you the possibility as well to look and recreate what you want to create. All right, from going to nothing again, and start creating. All right, so put everything in perspective and reset. And I found that meditating together gave us a lot of strength on our choices. All right, on how normally when we come out of that, it's like, okay, cool. What did you get? How do you want this? And what do you want from this? What is it? And same here. So it comes out as well. I remember a few times meditating, I end up the meditation with a smile, like, what were we doing? What were we discussing about? What was this about? What was so difficult? And and yeah, it's a very good. I'm not sure if it is not meditation. What other sort of activities could do that? But maybe pausing together and looking at each other's, and dropping. The main thing about this is dropping that ego. How we do that? How we, and to drop the ego, all it comes is heart opening and vulnerability. All right.
Yeah.
It's like getting naked straight away, and see what happens. All right, and that takes practice and takes a little bit of guts. But the reality is that if we want to be with someone, if we want to share the life with someone, there is a need to be on that space. You cannot not be vulnerable, because otherwise you become it's almost impossible, right? So the thing is, the possibility of open your heart, and it's a good resetting tool, right? You start
Mm.
from scratch again, and then things, life comes in again, and then there's something else that comes out, and you do the same process, and we keep building.
Yeah, 100%. And every time you go through that as a
That's-
moment of resilience building, you may not notice the change because it may be on a micro level, but over and over and over again, the more and more conflicts that you experience and more challenges. And again, what we're talking about here is no different to any other challenge in your life, whether that's more in terms of your own conflicts within yourself, or maybe you have some external challenges. Maybe you're going through, some grief, or you're going through a separation, or you're losing your job. I mean, it's anything you're going through, you can apply the same principle. The more we open ourselves to these experiences and go through them, the more resilience we can build to shape us come back a little bit stronger next time. What really got me excited with what you said earlier around meditation was that there are many, many different ways to address weeds in your relationship.
Mhm.
Uh, Having a sit down and a conversation, like I was explaining before, is one way that works for my wife and I, but there can be many different ways. I love the idea of doing meditation. I can't imagine my wife doing that because she doesn't really, that's just not so much her thing. But what it did strike me was what is it that you're doing when you're meditating is you're taking yourself out of your head
Mhm.
and into your body. So I would imagine that there are many activities that you could do with your partner, love making included, that get you more into the physical side of things, and maybe it's also going for a walk together
Yeah.
in nature. Anything that you can do to disrupt the head game, which is where the ego lives. So, you know, uh, I would encourage doing that sort of thing. Maybe if you like dancing, go, dance,
Yeah, that's a good
uh,
one.
uh, laugh, watch comedy together. Anything just to not to distract from the issue. It's more just to lighten yourselves, because once you do that, then you may be in a better situation to address the weeds openly, honestly, authentically. Each person can feel they have an opportunity to be heard. Remember, addressing conflict and addressing weeds is not about proving who's right or wrong. And how often do we do that in a relationship?
Mhm.
One of us needs to come out on top.
Yeah.
That's not what this is about. It's the opposite, actually. It's about recognizing that we're equally human and bringing an equal amount of shit to the situation. We're responsible for each other's shit, and but we still love each other.
Hmm.
We're willing to to do that work in the service of that love.
Yeah, and that's the most important. That's the most important thing, and yeah, it's just taking that responsibility and understanding as well how what life we are creating. All right, because if we are creating a mechanisms in our lives all the that create a lot of weeds all the time, like oh, and well, sometimes also is in that analysis about what happened is that oh wow, revisiting, is there anything that is not working of what we're doing? All right, is there are we pursuing something that is not helping us, or is it are we doing something that is taking all the time away from connection, or are we overloading ourselves, which makes us feeling frustrated or in constant threats? So then so every time there is a conflict and there is a moment to address what happens, it's like it's a good opportunity as well to check what are we doing? Well, why are we doing this? Is it helping? Is it not? How can we make it in a loving way? All right. Where's love in all of this? And slowly as well, adapting our life to what or creating the life that we really really want, because we have the capacity to do that. I remember myself feeling that I didn't have any choice in my life, that whatever I've been created, I'm a slave of that. And then I discovered that it's not true. Life can be reshaped at any time, and you can change directions the way you want anytime. So there's always a possibility of making changes when something is not working well. And while love is there, everything is possible. And it's another cheesy sentence, but it's true. It's very very true, to be honest. Um, I I never understood it properly. I thought it was a selling phrase or a movie making topic.
Something you would see in a rom-com movie or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, and love is not only romantic love. You
Love is
know,
ugly.
yeah, love is actually be in the world and understand that we are part of everything and we are everything at the same time.
Mhm.
So there is no way I will mistreat you because you are me. We are all the same. So and that's the base of love, all right? And so that's quite deep, and we are not living on that all the time because obviously we live in the surface and we live in our brains and all of that. However, that's a very available place to go, all right? And the more you go to those places, I will tell you, the life becomes a better experience. How to go to those places more often? Well, that's probably, in my point of view, the meaning of life.
Yeah.
And just without getting too spiritual, but I mean, the more we can do that, the less attached to the surface conflicts that we're gonna be. All right. So yeah, that's a little bit my when when I have an outburst of a reaction, I get triggered and blah, and I go through this black cloud, and then I deal with the consequences, and then we clear the weeds and we put it in the recycle, and then I meditate and say like, oh fuck, what just happened? What was that necessary? What was the problem?
Mm.
And why I got so triggered? And then there's a period that I leave that, and suddenly one other thing pops up, and then again the same cycle, and then that cycle could be a little bit shorter, or could be a little bit more loving, or could be, and then hopefully over many cycles, you start learning how to deal with yourself a little bit better. All right, that's how I see
Mm.
it. But yeah, the key here is once you are in it, minimize minimize the aggression, minimize the conflict, minimize
Yeah,
the
I think
the
of
damage.
it as, minimizing collateral damage.
Yeah,
So
correct. Yeah,
it's not just the relationship with your partner, but relationships in general.
but what happened? Yes, what
Because
happened is that
because we're going through life still learning. I'm still learning. You're still learning, and kind of like actors in a play. We're all learning together. So when I say collateral damage, I mean minimizing the amount of damage your own ego can lay uh, if it's not I was going to say managed, but that's probably not the right word. If you don't have that level of awareness uh, to want to keep yourself aligned with what's really important, uh, allowing the ego to run free is, and going to cause issues because we are all just trying to get along here, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
learn at the same time, so you can understand that it's only normal for conflict to arise in those moments.
Mm. And it's true. And the bad news, Lloyd, is that if your ego goes too hard and destroys things, destroys a relationship or destroys whatever you're destroying, you haven't solved anything. You will need to start a new story and deal with the same thing. So do not destroy things. Just work, because the destroying doesn't solve any problem.
Mm,
And what solves problems is transformation, all right. And but for that requires a lot of responsibility. So do not destroy things. Just take responsibility, and after that, there's a lot of clearance and it's a lot of beautiful things.
100%. And on a personal note, I just like to acknowledge and thank you uh, for sharing uh, about your experience with relationships as in a space like this. It's brave, it's courageous, and it's important work, though, I think, for us to be able to have a conversation that touches deep on things that are potentially personal to us and personal to our partners. I think we've done that in a way that's respectful, and I
Yeah.
hope it is respectful. And I'm sure that the conversation today is is relevant um, for people who are also trying to navigate their own way in the world with relationships. So uh, again, because this is how we shape the podcast, that we're not talking from science, we're talking from experience, and we're talking from uh, real things that have gone on. It involves the real stories. And in the case of today, we both arrived at this conversation having gone through some relationship conflict this morning. And in real time, we're here to unpack it. And so thank you for being vulnerable and willing to share your personal stories in the service of what's an important conversation.
Yeah, same. I have exactly the same to say, Lloyd. And this is not about I mean, it's about being able to share this and put it out there in a way that is relatable to other people. It's not about our partners in general or the exposition of something. It's about being able to share respectfully, so we all know what we are dealing with and we know that things that happen to us are not unique, and we can use our experiences to put something out there and um, maybe help someone if there is any help there, and also help ourselves, which is actually a very good thing as well. And yeah, thank you. And I think that I love this topic as well. We haven't touched relationship so far in a deeper way, and I guess there's more things that might come up in the future, because it's a very interesting topic that involve us all at some point in life. So why not? And also, it is from a masculine perspective. It would be nice at some point to invite a feminine energy on this conversation as well. We'll see how it goes.
Yes, and saying that, this podcast is not the only forum where help is available, or if nothing in the least, it's offering a shared experience so others can feel like they are connected with similar challenges that we're all going through. But if anything resonated in the conversation today for anyone at all, please feel free to reach out if you'd like to continue conversation, and maybe in a one-on-one environment. Both my and Diego's contacts can be found in the show notes, and don't hesitate to reach out. We're more than willing and available to continue those conversations with anyone that feels they would like to talk more. And I'd just also like to say on that note that we are endeavoured to have a few more guests on the show this year. I'm very pleased to announce that we have a guest, Jacinda Crothers, who's a woman, and she'll be coming on, a wonderful woman here in the Bay of Plenty. Also a fellow coach, very, very knowledgeable and wise in the area of joy, how we can bring joy into our lives on a more regular basis. She also facilitates the morning breath work, meditation, and beach swim every Wednesday here in Papamoa, which I and my friend Alan, we regularly go to. It's our wonderful Wednesday thing. So we're going to have her on the show, and that's going to be in a few weeks. So I'm very excited for that, and looking forward to having a bit of feminine energy maybe to balance out. And maybe she could also add into the mix some of these awful things that us husbands do, which drive our wives completely mad. So I think that's probably us today. As the calm guy, arrived feeling a little not so calm, but I can safely say feeling a little calmer now, thanks to a very, very meaningful and purposeful conversation. Thank you so much, Diego.
Thank you, Lloyd. Thank you. See you next time.
See you next time.
Thanks for staying with us. This conversation doesn't end here. It keeps moving just like we do.
And if something resonated or stirred a question, you don't need to resolve it. Just notice it. Let it sit with you. And until next time, take care of yourself, and thanks for listening.